Right, my name's Dennis Hall. This is, excuse my rough version of the credits, but this is about Donald Trump, about poor old Joe Biden, and it's about my feelings about what's going to happen in the future. You know, it's just talk, in the end. So, I wonder if I can remember what I'm up to. The thing about Donald Trump and Joe Biden is that they really are seriously different characters. Excuse me, I need an aspirin for this. Panadol. I can see zigzags in front of my eyes, always. Means that I need to take some Panadol. So I want to talk about Donald Trump and poor old Joe Biden. I mean, to start with Joe Biden, I feel sorry for Joe Biden and watch him on the TV. He's got that scumbag son, which he sort of keeps hovering around. The media won't separate the two. I think that Joe Biden is a cut above his son. Not really. I think that they're both sort of the same ilk. I think that there's going to be some, eventually. I think that the American FBI and the Department of Justice, they don't want to have a go at Biden until he's out of office. They don't want to have a go at a sitting president, and they don't want to have a go at a left-wing president because quite clearly the American sort of bureaucracy is left-wing. And Americans shouldn't put up with that shit. They need to, but we put up with that in New Zealand at all. Our bureaucracy is all left-wing. And, when a right-wing government gets into power, they need to shake those bastards out. Because, they run interference on whatever you're trying to do all the time. Left-wing, that's what they do. They're completely dishonest. We know they're dishonest. We see their dishonesty every day. We tolerate their dishonesty. And it's got me baffled as to why. Because, most of the people who support the left wing seem to me to be nice old ladies. And I would have thought that they were people who would insist on honesty and integrity and decency. And none of it exists on the left. Just doesn't. And people on the right, they sort of tend to try to be honest. People on the right, I know them, conservatives, they have trouble telling lies. They just do. Some of them don't. Some of them will tell a lie at the drop of a hat. But, by and large, a conservative person living in suburbia is basically going to tell you the truth. Why don't I go down that rat hole? So we've got the Bidens in America. Keep on track, Dennis. We've got the Bidens in America. And the Fox News are rushing around with all kinds of evidence to suggest that they've been taking bribes at a presidential level. So my prediction for that is that eventually that, and everybody else is, while these accusations are being made, everybody else is looking the other way. Well, they're going to stop doing that eventually because once they start to realise that it's all true, but all you got to do is look at Biden's son. He's a crackhead. Trust him like you'd trust a wet fart. But his father stays in close contact with him. Now, so you've got a sort of tag team there, Joe and his son. You didn't have that with Trump. I don't believe you had that with Trump at any time. He acknowledged his family. They would be seen from time to time. But basically, Trump was a one-man band. And, he did a lot of things that were really valuable. But, and I'm not sure exactly what they are, but certainly he seemed to have a greater grasp of international relations than any president before or since. And it was because he's a bit down home. And I do think he tends to be down home. And everybody is to some degree. And so everybody really is to some degree. And so that includes Joe Biden, I suppose, and it's going to include Putin. And I'll tell you what I think. Donald Trump's going to win the election. Yeah, so suck it up, you lefties. And all over the world, you lefties. Donald Trump's going to be the next president of the United States. And one of the reasons why, one of the big bloody incentives to that is we've all watched what a left-wing president can do. Joe Biden walks around like he's just shit himself. The man, look, I'm an old man. It's difficult for me to walk any distance, but at least I can stand up straight and walk. And I don't sort of drag my feet along and whatever. I think it's appalling that this man is the president of the United States, and you've got to ask yourself why. And the reason why is because they didn't have any better candidate. What qualified Biden to be the president? The fact that he had been vice president to Barack Obama. If he'd have been black, he'd have been a shoo-in. So Joe Biden, you don't have to be a smart ass to be able to look at Joe Biden and realise you've got a problem on your hands as president of the United States, and the whole world's Americans. Oh, look, I know some lovely Americans. You have to understand that the whole world is watching Biden. He's a laughingstock. Nobody takes him seriously. Out comes Fox News and they talk incessantly about the corruption, the money corruption and the bribes and things that they're involved in. Some of that shit's going to stick. And the reason it's going to stick is because some of it's going to be true. Because, they can see and they're prepared to acknowledge that Biden is a waste of space. He needs to be gone. But he's not. He's tottering around there, still the bloody president and whatever. And it looks like there's no chance of shifting him out of that role until the bloody election. It's just kind of an odd thing for the United States of America that they can't get rid of a lame dog president. But he is a lame dog president. And sad. So it's sad. But Trump's not. And so every poll, all of the polls will show you lefties that Donald Trump is ahead in all the polls. He's ahead of DeSantis. He's going to win. DeSantis is not going to cut the mustard. The only thing that'll get DeSantis into the presidency is if someone shoot Donald Trump. Don't even want to say that out loud. And so we've got a situation now where we've got a hot war in the Ukraine, between the Ukraine and Russia, started by Putin. Why would Putin choose to start a war with one of his former satellite countries? Well, it was simple to me, and I live in New Zealand, which is a backwater in the world. New Zealand's at the bottom of the sort of global pecking order, but we sort of have access to international news. And I knew, if nobody else knew, lots of New Zealanders would have known, that the problem was that NATO was encouraging. Have a look at the map. What comes in between Russia and NATO? The Ukraine. What's it you dumb fuckers don't get about that? So Putin's looking at that. Ukraine was a gigantic flat place where you can have a huge fucking war. You could send half a dozen armies in there and just soak them up. And the other thing that Ukraine does is a major supplier of bloody corn and wheat to the whole fucking world. Think about what that actually means in the sort of global context. And so NATO are encouraging them to join NATO. So what would that do? So Putin's going to look up and say, Ukraine's going to join NATO? That means I'm going to have NATO right on my border. In the meantime, they're on the Ukraine's border, so Ukraine is a buffer zone between them and us. But they're going to move the NATO right up onto my border, so it's, much, much closer to Moscow. And Moscow's the seat of our government. And, there's all kinds of sites around Russia that we don't want to have within easy reach of low-grade missiles, which non-ballistic missiles. A lot of Russia would have become very vulnerable. What is it these fucking idiots in control don't think about that? So they're going to make Russia vulnerable, and they think that's winning. And winning, it's never going to win with someone like Putin. He's going to look at that and go, well, fuck you. You want to come up and get right in my pocket? Not going to happen. It was so he just. What did he do? The idea was that if there was a difficulty between NATO and Russia, most of that difficulty would take place in Ukraine. Well, why wouldn't he do it that way? He was happy. The status quo. He was happy with the status quo. Everybody could get grain and stuff from Ukraine. They were reasonably autonomous and were able to supply food and make money and be reasonably well off. And you guys have just screwed it up, you fucking idiots. That's the best terminology I can come up with for NATO. You fucking idiots decided to test Putin. Well, Putin passed your test. He started blowing you up. He just did. And I'm not a Putin fan at all. But can't blame him. You can't blame him. And so we've got a battle going on in the Ukraine, which is going to continue to go on because Russia will just throw more and more at it. You fuckwits can throw more and more at it all you like. All you're doing is throwing away the lives of innocent Russians and innocent Ukrainians and innocent, if you're going to send any sort of Frenchmen or British or whatever, innocent them as well. You'll be ashamed of yourselves. If you can't consider yourselves leaders when you're that dumb. But anyway, there's going to be a flea in your ear soon because, next year, 2024, Donald Trump's going to be elected to the presidency again. And you guys are going to be right smack dab on his radar. And he's not going to come up over there to blow you up. But he's going to jump on Air Force One. And he's going to land in Moscow. He's not going to talk to you fucking idiots first because he knows what you'll say. And so you're going to have the President of the United States visiting your enemy, the person you've made into an enemy, Putin. Now, America, I know that America needs an enemy because if it doesn't have an enemy, as in when it was once it was Vietnam, but there's always an enemy somewhere. That idiot in North Korea is a good enemy, but they've got to have an enemy that they can publicise, talk about, put pictures up of, make sure everybody knows about them. And Kim Jong-un's good enough for that. Because then they can use that to buy and build and make and create an even bigger military. And so, they've got China to be an enemy. They don't need Russia to be an enemy anymore. So Donald Trump's going to say to Putin, he'll contact him by phone first and say, oh, by the way, Vladimir, going to be there on Friday afternoon, 2 o'clock. How about we have somewhere to meet? Can you organise that? Putin will say, yeah, sure. Because Putin's not stupid. He will know that Donald Trump is coming along to sort the bloody bullshit out. Because it needs a powerful bloody American leader to do that. Because, there's no powerful leader in amongst those other countries in NATO. I mean, there's Britain, but they're sort of past it. There's the French, they're nuclear armed, just like the British. But, there's Germany, but does Germany want to have another go at Russia? They didn't do too well the last time. And Germany knows that they've got to make, if they want to attack Russia, they've got to have enough petrol to get across Ukraine. It's all stupid. The world knows too much about wars now because it's all on the bloody TV. The world do not want a war. The world also knows, because most people with half a brain know that there's all these nuclear weapons. And, I think is it the anniversary today, or in a couple of days, 6th of August, I think. It's the 1st of August today, and then the 6th of August is the anniversary of the bombing of Hiroshima. And the bombing of Hiroshima was an eye-opener for the Japanese, but it was a bigger eye-opener for the Americans, because they knew it was going to be big, but they didn't know it was going to be that big. So it was at that point, around early August 1945, everybody started thinking about nuclear weapons, and they've never stopped. They've been thinking about it ever since. And so they know, the Americans boast that Putin knows that if he fires any nuclear weapons, that the Americans know where he is all the time. They can probably do that with his phone. If he's carrying a cell phone, they'll know where he is, and they can kill him with a nuclear bomb. And they could kill him with a small nuclear bomb if they wanted to. But I mean, they would probably like the idea of taking out most of bloody. They would probably like the idea of the ancient city of Moscow turning into a desert, like they did with Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Now, do I blame the Americans for using the atom bomb in the Second World War? Absolutely not. Of course I don't. They would have been criminal not to. Every life that ended as a result of the fight that continued, if they had not dropped the atomic bomb, would be on the heads of the Americans. And so, we've all got used to it. Yeah. All that's all gone. But, it could come back again. And so then you go, tactical nuclear weapons, they're smaller. They're still fucking nuclear weapons. The other thing we've got to not gag about is that obviously they dropped a relatively dirty bloody atomic bomb on Nagasaki, and two different kinds of bombs they used. One was plutonium and the other one was uranium. And I don't know enough about all that to know about the pollution, the radioactive pollution, but, people live there. You can go and visit Hiroshima. They talk about it having a half-life of like 20,000 years. We're going, well, it's only sort of not very long, since 80 years or something. And people have been living there since whenever. And so we've got two men together in a building somewhere close. It'll be somewhere close to Air Force One, because that's Trump's flying office. So they'll stay close, and he'll invite Vladimir Putin and some of his blokes to come aboard and there's a big meeting space there. They'll have meetings on Air Force One, and he's going to say to Vladimir, nuclear war is going to be a stupid idea, and that's the next step in all this. So it's up to you and I, two people. It's going to be up to two people in the world. Nobody else, two people. Vladimir Putin and Donald Trump. Because all the other statesmen in the world are too fucking stupid to do it. Trump is the only person in the world who has the balls, the integrity, and the get up and go, and also the credibility to sit down with Putin and say, look, you give me your word, I'll give you mine. And the two of them will put an end to the war in Ukraine in days. And then there'll be the clean-up phase. And the people around the world, ordinary people, I mean, the world is made up of ordinary people. Well, there's all these people in power, of course, but the world's made up of ordinary people. And ordinary people look at the likes of the war in Ukraine and think, fuck, if that turns into a nuclear weapon, that could completely ruin all of my future. Because, they've got enough nuclear weapons to completely annihilate most of the cities on the planet. Well, they just have. And, who are they in control of? Some 18-year-old, some maybe a 25-year-old with a button in front of him. I'm not allowed to press this button unless the boss says so. Who's the boss? Oh, that prick over there. Who's he? Oh, he's a major general, somebody or other. But if he gets a message from what if he gets a fake message? Decides to press the button. It's a stupid place for the world to be. Joe Biden's too stupid to do that, and he also does not. Joe Biden does not even come close to having the global credibility that Donald Trump, who we all hate. I don't hate him. I think he's a marvelous man, but so many people hate him and despise him because he is sort of seen like a buffoon. But he's also seen as a guy who believes in himself. Donald Trump, within weeks of being elected president of the United States, probably before even an inauguration, he will have sorted out the war in Ukraine. By comparison, if he remained there, poor old Joe Biden would still not have been able to sort out the illegal doings of his stupid son, crackhead son. I mean, really, look at the difference between the two families. I mean, good God, it is extraordinary to me that ordinary Americans have taken some of this shit seriously. Why would American leftist people go and vote for a bloody retard? I shouldn't call him a retard. What's the word I'm looking for? Really, he's an old man coming tottering out of an old man's home. I've seen them. You've seen them. We've all seen them. I mean, he should be sitting in a chair somewhere wearing nappies. Well, he should. Can't walk properly. I mean, look at this. I mean, the foolish way he walks. Can't string a sentence together properly. Can't do things on cue. Can't walk upstairs. The man is beyond it. And the Americans, not all the Americans, most of the Americans are very fine people, but the left are deluded beyond belief. The entire globe looks at America, watches the left vote for Joe Biden, and they all scratch their heads and they think you're nuts. I love America. I'd love to go and live there. But, I absolutely want to see the left squashed first. It wasn't the left that built America to where it is now. It was the right. You people on the left, just go down to Hollywood and fuck around with those people down there because they all know best, because they know how to pretend stuff. That's what they do in Hollywood. All those Hollywood people pretend things. Let's pretend I'm a cowboy. And by the way, I vote left. I have absolute contempt, utter contempt for all of these people on the left in America, because they belong to the greatest and strongest country on the planet, and they're carrying on with it like it's some kind of toy. You people need to lock yourselves up. Go and take a fucking Valium, or take a whole bloody bottle of Valium, go and lie down somewhere and let Donald Trump get on with it. He will sort out your problems for you while you're still thinking. You won't even have a grasp of what they are. But Donald Trump has got credibility around the rest of the world, and America does not. That's all I've got to say about that. I've got more to say about that, but that's what I've said today. I'm going to stick this on YouTube for what it's worth. And I want people to understand the difference between Trump and Biden. Trump, credibility. Biden, none at all. Can't even climb a flight of stairs.